in case somebody needs to go back and watch it. So when you calculate on this question, to calculate this daily interest charge right here, if you want to calculate the daily interest charge on any loan, you need to know the loan balance first, and then you need to know the interest rate. But that's an annual interest rate. So $387,500 times the annual interest rate. Because if you remember, the T-bar looks like this. It's like annual interest equals what? Loan balance times the interest rate, right? Times the annual rate. Everybody remember that as the formula? Right? So when you do 387,500 times 6.5% or times 6.5 divided by 100, however you want to type that into your calculator, 387,500 times 6.5%, that is 25,187.50, but that's per what?
Per year.
Per year. Okay. How many days are there in that year, since they want to know daily interest?
360.
360. Now, I suppose in theory, it is possible for them to say use a 365-day calendar. Folks, would that really make the math harder, or would it just be telling you to divide by 365 instead of 360? What do you think?
365.
Divided by 365. But if they don't tell you, use 360. Use 360. And even if you use 360 when you're supposed to be using 365, the number's going to be so close, you'll probably still get the right answer. So don't stress over that if it happened to pop up. All right, so if we divide that by 360, we got $69 and some change per day. 69 and about 96 or 97 cents per day.
A little bit of a specific number.
It is. That was by accident. What do you think? I reverse engineered it from the daily interest?
Yes.
If I was going to do that, it would have been 69.69 a day. I mean, come on.
Sorry, this is a night class.
Yeah, we're not in the night class anymore. Get your mind out of the gutter. You know, I know you just woke up in the gutter.
I can't help it. They do it.
You just woke up in the gutter, but get your mind out of there. You know, like, $69.97 a day. Anybody not getting that? I mean, most people obviously got it by themselves, but is there anybody who is not getting that? Because that is the most basic of loan calculations, coming up with the daily interest. What that means is that person's loan balance, what they would owe if they were going to pay it off, is actually doing what every single day, folks?
It's dropped.
Balance is going down.
Lower.
Going down every single day? Their loan balance?
Loan balance.
Their payoff amount? What is it doing every single day, folks?
It's
It
accrued.
goes up.
It's going up because interest is doing what to it every single day?
Oh, it's accruing.
Added
to
It's accruing. It's adding to it. So every single day that they keep that loan outstanding, they owe the bank another $69.97. They're not borrowing more money, but that's just how fast the interest is building up on that loan. Does that make sense for everybody?
Yeah.
I mean, when you think about that, when you step back, that is a lot of interest a day. $70 just lit on fire. So it adds up very, very quickly. Very quickly. Okay? All right. Let's take a look at the next one here. Number 2. Calculate the accrued interest on a loan with an outstanding principal of $312,480 at 5.25% interest as of February 14th. You got 2 minutes. This is very soothing Kahoot music today. Are they on like a? Well, see, I say that and listen to what it does. It's like
a chill.
It's like a sneak attack.
Queued it up.
I didn't actually. I was like, man, this is very zen sounding today. And then all of a sudden, I'm like, what is that?
Anxiety.
So a little bit less certainty on this one than the previous one. Here's the thing, folks. There shouldn't be less certainty here because it's really the same question done again. The only difference, instead of 1 day of interest this time, what are they essentially asking you for?
14 days.
14 days of interest. But don't forget, if you're paying off the loan, if you're paying accrued interest, you never go outside of that month. Does that make sense for everybody?
Yeah.
You don't ever go outside of that month when we're dealing with interest. So if it's accrued, it's only been accruing since February the 1st, which gives us a total of what?
14 days.
14 days. From February 1 through February 14th is 14 days. So it really just becomes the same question we just did. Okay, our loan balance is $312,480 times an annual interest rate of 5.25%. Using that same formula, the annual interest is equal to the loan balance times the rate, right? So 312,480 times 5.25%, that is 16,405 and 20 cents. How many of you got that far? Even if you didn't write it, you get that far. Okay. Now remember, that's annually. So what do we need to do? Break that down immediately to what?
Daily.
To daily. Now, here's what I'll tell you. Here's where some people struggle. Some people say, I need to divide that by 14 just because they see the number 14 on the screen. No, folks. We never divide by random numbers in this class. When we're breaking down an annual number, there's only two ways to divide it. We either divide it by 12 if we want to go to what?
Monthly.
Monthly. Or we divide it by 360 if we want to go to what? Daily. So when you're taking an annual number and you're dividing, you better make sure the number on the other side of that division symbol is either 12 or 360. Those are the only two numbers we divide by when we're breaking things down. Okay? So we divide by 360 here because we want to get down to daily. Okay? And look at Kayla. She just confessed. I love a confession, Kayla, because that means you're going to fix it next time. Accrued interest, folks. What's the cardinal rule of dealing with interest? And this is why I set this question up this way. The cardinal rule of you stay in the same what?
Stay in the same month.
Stay in the same month. So this is $45.57 per day. If you took it all the way back to January, folks, you did way too many days. And here's why that's not going to be correct. What did this borrower do on February 1st that erased all the accrued interest up to that point?
Make a payment.
They made a payment. That February 1st payment paid every cent of accrued interest at that moment. It didn't pay every cent of the loan, the balance, the principal, but it paid every cent of the interest. So the interest starts over at zero after every payment. Does that make sense for everybody?
Yeah.
And that's why we stay in there, right? And so like Joseph put in the chat, you can only accrue for the month because you make a new payment every month, right? Stay in the same month. Always in the same month. Always. So what are we multiplying times here? Times our 14 days. And if we do that, we come up with 637.98. Now, I worked real hard to make sure all of these numbers were numbers that you could get a calculator to spit out at you if you put in different combinations. I think I made an answer. Did I make an answer choice, Kayla, if you used 44 days? Probably so. I probably did.
Probably gold.
If you took it back to January, I probably did give you that as an answer choice, right? Gotta make sure.
Would you see numbers rounded off at the end or no?
They could be. You mean like to $1? Is that what you're talking about?
Correct.
They could, if they do, they would say rounded to the nearest dollar.
Okay.
But here's the thing, and this is why I tell people don't worry about rounding in this class, because that's one of those things that people ask me all the time. Well, what about the rounding? What about the rounding? And Calvin, I'm not criticizing you by saying that. I'm just pointing this out, folks. The closest two answers to each other are $637.98 and $45.57. Is rounding ever going to matter choosing between those two answers?
No.
And that's the way this test is. You're just not going to have answers that are close enough to each other that rounding is ever going to matter. Don't worry about the rounding, and when you're done, choose the answer that's closest to your answer. If it's $1 off, that's fine. Doesn't matter. Doesn't mean you did it wrong. Don't expect the exact number in your calculator to always show up, because it depends on if somebody rounded somewhere along the way. It's a great question, so I want to make sure we highlight that. Rounding's just not going to matter for you. Okay? Are we good on this now? Those of you that didn't get it, are we feeling better?
Yep. Yes.
Okay, good. Because the good thing about this is find your mistakes. See where you messed up so you don't do it again. Number 3. What is the best description of the payoff on a mortgage note as of May 28th, 2022? This one's a word question, so I'm going to read it. So what's the best description of the payoff as of May 28th? Red, the principal balance of the loan as of May 28th. Blue, the principal balance of the loan as of May 1st, 2022. Gold, the principal balance as of May 1, 2022, plus accrued interest since May 1. Or green, the principal balance as of May 1, plus accrued interest since January 1. What is the best description of the loan payoff as of May 28? Got 10 seconds left on that one. Very good. Most of you very, very good. So a loan payoff always starts with the principal balance, right? It always starts with the principal balance. But what gets added to that principal balance?
The interest.
Plus accrued interest, right? So here's the thing. Couldn't we eliminate red and blue simply by the fact that it doesn't say anything at all about interest?
Yep.
Right? Red and blue go away because anytime you're paying off a loan, there's going to be some accrued interest. Even if you pay it off on the first of the month, there's how many days of accrued interest?
1.
Even if you pay it off on the first of the month, there's still, even after you just made a payment, there's still 1 day of accrued interest. Does that make sense for everybody? Mm-hmm. Okay, so those go away because they don't say anything at all about accrued interest. The only other choices you have there are interest being accrued since the beginning of the month or interest being accrued since the beginning of the year, and we just talked about that. Always stay within the same what? Month. Now, I do want to talk about why red is not correct. Folks, the principal balance of the loan stays the same all month long. The payoff amount goes up. But the principal balance is the amount we owe of what we borrowed originally. That number never goes up. That number stays the same until we make a payment, and then it goes down by a little bit. So it's not accurate to say the principal balance as of May 28th. It's accurate to say the principal balance as of the 1st of May plus all the interest that's built up since the 1st of May. What's the only day of the month your principal balance changes every month, folks?
The
first
When you make your payment.
When you make your payment, which is what day?
the
The first. First of the month, baby. The only time that principal balance changes, you need Bone Thugs and Harmony going on in your head right there. Wake up. It's the 1st of the month. Your loan balance just came down. Because you made a what? Payment. That loan balance is not going to change the remainder of the month. The amount you would owe to pay it off has changed because the amount you owe to pay it off includes the loan balance plus what? Plus the accrued interest. I want to make sure you get that in your mind so that you don't miss that kind of a question. It's too easy of one once you understand this stuff to miss it. You want to make sure you get that right. Okay. Number 4. What is the loan payoff due on a principal balance of $287,500 issued at 4% annual interest with closing on March 10th? You got 4 minutes. Plenty of time. All right, Angie, you can fall in there and start working on this question. We're doing Kahoot with some math questions. Even if you can't join, you can work on the questions. You should be able to join with the PIN number, but... Don't try to remember steps. Think about the definition you already know for a loan payoff. We just went over it. If you think about that definition, the steps will become clear. I need to fix that typo. It's driving me nuts. You got about 45 seconds or so. You should be winding it down. At this point, if you don't have an answer, most likely you're just spinning your wheels and you don't really know where you're going. Because if you know where you're going, you probably should have an answer by now. Right. Let's see how we did. Very good, folks. Ooh. I like that. I like that. That is good. So we just said a loan payoff. Okay, let's get our definition going again. A payoff is going to be the balance plus what?
Accrued interest.
Accrued interest. And in this case, accrued interest is how many days?
10.
How many days of accrued interest?
10 days.
10 days, right?
That's true.
Did somebody say that's tricky? That's not tricky.
No, I said 70 days.
You said 70 days.
Because I was counting like.
Let me ask you something, Yelly. What month has 70 days in it?
None.
And Yelly, you know how much I love you, right? Stay in the month. You needed to hear that this morning.
Yep.
Stay in the month. That's why we practice them, though, folks, because it is such a common mistake. It's not just Danielle. She just volunteered. It's such a common mistake, right? Stay in the month. Stay in the month. Stay in the month.
I'm telling you.
Yep. Janet, do you have a question?
I got it right, but it took me forever because I sometimes will be like, oh, it's 21 days because I'll go to the opposite end like that.
Accrued means past.
Hopefully I'll
right?
never do that again.
Accrued means past. Everybody okay with that?
Accumulate,
Right.
accrued.
There you go. Accrued is like accumulated. It's built up, right? Okay. Joseph said he stayed in the month but forgot to add the principal. Your lender's not going to be very happy about that, Joseph. They want their $287,500. They don't want just the interest. They want the $287,500 as well. It's both. Okay. So the payoff balance we know is $287,500. Is there an answer we could have eliminated without doing any math at all?
Blue.
Yeah,
Blue.
285.
Blue. The 8 of you that chose blue really need to think about what a loan payoff is. It's not just the balance of the loan, because there's always also going to be what, folks?
Interest.
Some interest hanging out there. So 287.5 goes away. 287.5 is the starting point for the payoff. But even if we paid it off on the first, there would be 1 day of accrued interest. So it's always going to be more than the balance. Always for a payoff. And the further we go in the month, it's going to be more and more and more because you have more days of what?
Interest.
Of interest that's built up or accrued. Okay? So 287.5 is our starting point. But that leaves us with 3 possibilities here. Okay? So now we need to figure out what 10 days of interest is. I don't have a formula for figuring out 10 days of interest, but I definitely have a formula for figuring out a year of interest, which I can get down to daily interest. Can I say 287,500 times 4% annual interest to get the yearly interest on that thing?
Yes.
Okay? So that's $11,500 in annual interest. Are we all feeling okay about that number?
Yes.
And remember, we're only allowed to divide by 2 numbers, 12 or 360. Which one is it here? Are we going down to monthly or are we going down to daily?
Daily.
Daily.
We're going down to daily, so we're going to divide by 360.
Yes.
Okay? Divide by 360. That is $31 and about 94 cents a day. I don't round again, so I would just say 31.9444. I usually go like 4 past the decimal. If you rounded it, doesn't matter. It just means your answer is going to be a few cents different. That's not going to impact which answer you choose. Okay? So $31 and about 94 cents a day times how many days?
10 days.
Right, so I'll come over here, 31,9444 times 10 days. That's 319 and 44 cent ish, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what do we have to do with that 319? Take it back and do what with it?
Add it
to the principal balance.
Add it to the principal balance. And if we do that, that should be this number right here, the 287, 819, and 44 cent.
Mhm.
Okay?
Will they ever ask I got it right, but will they ask like what the buyer would pay from March 10th on? Like, was that going to come up much on?
Sure. What do we call that, Janet? And by the way, it wouldn't be on this loan because the buyer and the seller don't share the same loan.
Yeah.
The buyer's getting a completely different loan. There's a whole different name for buyer's interest at a closing. Interim interest. Interim interest is the name for buyer's interest, which is the interest from the day of closing until the end of the month. But remember, and don't get this crossed up in your head because it is a really big mistake to do so. Would the buyer be paying interest on this loan of $287,500?
No.
What do y'all think?
No.
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 The buyer's getting a different loan from a different bank with different numbers and different interest rates. The only way the buyer would pay interest on this loan is if they were doing what?
Assuming it.
If they were assuming this loan, and that's just not common, and that'll never be a math test question. Okay? So buyer would have a whole different loan. I'm glad that question got asked. All righty, let's take a look at the next one. How much interest would be paid over the life of a 30-year, $319,000 note issued at 6% interest with monthly PI payments of $1,912? You got plenty of time here. We want to know interest paid over the whole life of the loan, that 30-year period. How much interest is going to be paid? If we pay the loan back over the full 30 years, how much interest is that going to cost this borrower? That's what life of the loan means. It means the full time. You still got more than 2 minutes, so you got plenty of time. I would say, though, you ought to be getting awfully close to an answer here. If you haven't gotten an answer or are not real close, you are working way too hard. This question is not nearly as difficult as it seems. I think we should take the rest of the day off after this, shouldn't we?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
We'd be fine for me. I know this information. I don't know about y'all.
Oh,
Oh, and Janet, too, they will say things like the amount that's accrued or built up.
Yes, Janet, they will use the words accrued and interim on the test. I mean, it's not necessary that they use them. If you're asking, will they always use them? No, but they will use them.
Yeah, you didn't use it, which just means we have to use our heads more if they don't.
Right, that's right. And that's exactly right.
Is there another word for interim that they might use?
No, buyer's interest. You know, what would be the interest on the buyer's new loan? You would have to know that's interim interest. All right, let's see how we did on this one. This will be an interesting one, I think. Methinks. I am absolutely not shocked to see that result at all, because this is a classic example of making it harder than it is. Myra said, does them mentioning the PI payment even matter for this question? Yes. Here's the real question. Does them mentioning the interest rate even matter for this question?
Yeah.
No, absolutely not. And folks, if you will remember, and I guarantee you this test question is coming. You better come back and watch this video. You better learn how to do this one. When I say it's random what questions you get, this one ain't random. This is 100% guaranteed on the test. You know why it's 100% guaranteed?
Because it's so because it's easy to mix up.
Because only 13 of you got it right.
It's very easy though.
It's a very easy math question.
You have the monthly payment already.
Here's the thing, folks, that you are forgetting about these loans. Because I know what you did if you missed it. Raise your hand if this applies to you. Because nobody's looking except me. You took the $319,000 and you multiplied it times 6% interest, and you said, oh, that's the annual interest, so let me multiply that times 30 years. Raise your hand if that applied to you. Here's the problem with that, folks. Are you going to owe $319,000 for all 30 of those years? No. The loan balance is doing what every single month, folks?
Going down.
It's going down. And what you just did was assume the loan balance is going to stay exactly the same for 30 years. It doesn't work that way. Here's what you haven't yet made peace with, even though you think you have. That $1,912, does it not include the interest? Is interest not built into that payment, folks?
It is.
Yes.
So when they ask you about over the life of the loan, don't we know exactly how many times that payment is going to be made over the life of the loan?
Yeah.
Yes.
Because if we are paying $1,912 per month, how many months are there in the average year?
Well,
12, last I checked, correct?
I'm 30.
So if we do 1912 times 12, that means we're paying $22,944 per what?
year.
Per year. Times how many years?
30
30
years.
Years.
Times 30 years. Now, that's a total repayment of $688,320. Notice I said that's total repayment. But that's not just the interest. That also includes what number?
The principal.
Loan amount.
The $319 that we borrowed. But here's the deal. If I know I borrowed $319 and I know I paid back $688,320, how complex is it to figure out how much interest I paid, folks?
Not, you just subtract the two.
Yeah.
How many of you are absolutely slapping yourself right now that you made that 100 times harder than it needed to be?
Mm-hmm.
369, 320. All right, talk to me. Because if you missed it and now you understand it, that's great. But if you missed it and you still don't understand it, or you're still kind of battling with it in your head, I really want to try to fix that if I can. Nisha said, I knew the PI payments mattered. I just didn't know what to do with it. Okay, well, now you do. Right? Now you do. Myra said, way easier than I thought. Absolutely. This question's coming. This question is coming. Some variation of this question is coming. Make sure you make peace with this one. This is not a hard one. Not a difficult one here. Okay? Are we all right with this? I just want to make sure we're not leaving you behind on it, because it really shouldn't be the one that trips you up. I understand getting it wrong the first time. Don't get it wrong again. So Joseph said I read the question wrong. Joseph, I'm curious what you read, because I'll be honest with you, Joseph. When I hear that, in fact, I had a Facebook post about this morning. I posted, here's my Facebook post for the day. I know the material, but I just overthink the questions. Never has a bigger lie been told by somebody to themselves than that statement right there. Folks, if you got it wrong, you do not know the material. And most likely, if you got it wrong, most likely you did not read the question wrong. That is a self-protection mechanism that you build as a child to not admit that you just didn't know. Here's my problem with that. That prevents you from learning it again. Because as long as you tell yourself, oh, I knew, I just read it wrong, you don't fix it. And that's what scares me with that statement. I'd much rather you say, you know what? I just flummed it. I just screwed it up, right? So Joseph said 1912 is too big of a number for PMI. Well, it's not PMI. It's PI. It's PI. Principal and interest. Principal and interest, not PMI. That's mortgage insurance, right? So if you mistook PI for PMI, I can see how you definitely go down the wrong path, right? No, PI is the way we express the monthly. What's the phrase we know for that principal and interest payment, that PI payment? What's the phrase we know it by? Vocabulary.
Budget one? Budget.
Debt service. Debt service. The PI payment is the same thing as the debt service payment. Because that's the payment it takes every month to do what?
Service the debt.
Service the debt.
The debt.
That is the payment it takes every month to service the debt. Now, the PITI payment is the budget payment because that includes things that are not related to the debt. What two things does a PITI payment include that have nothing to do with the debt that's actually being repaid? Taxes and insurance, right? So the TI portion of PITI makes it more than a loan payment. The PI payment is to strip down just the payment on the loan. Okay? Okay. Katrina said, but you just want to know how much interest. The PI includes principal and interest. And you're still a little bit confused. You're right, Katrina. So the PI does include principal and interest, which just means you need to subtract the principal out. If what you've got includes both principal and interest, just get rid of the principal. But you can't get rid of monthly principal because you don't know how much of the principal is being paid monthly. But you do know how much principal is being paid back. How, folks? In total, right?
Total.
So you know that in total, that number's got to be subtracted out of what you pay back because that's not interest. So now you have 1912 monthly PI and you have 319 total principal. All we're doing is getting total PI by doing 12 months a year, 30 years. And when you multiply that out, you get total PI. Now that we have total PI and total principal, can we subtract the total principal from the total principal and interest and be left with just the total interest?
Yep.
Yes.
Does that help, Katrina? I hope it does. Yes, good. Okay. All right. Good. I'm glad you spoke up because we want to make sure to get it fixed for you. Or try to, anyway. Number 6. What would be charged in total loan fees for purchasing a $525,000 home at 80% loan to value with 2 discount points and a 1% origination? You got plenty of time. Take your time. I love hearing the numbers the answers start to pop in. That means we got some confident answers coming in.
Oh, missed it.
Well, at least you realized it.
I missed it.
At least you realized it.
Yep.
The good news is on the real test, you can change your answer when you realize that. So, you know.
Yeah, you're right. Read it too fast. I said, oh, I got this. And I'm like, no.
Yeah. Still got another couple minutes. I don't think it's going to take that long, though. Try to do it in the next minute, because I think everybody will be pretty much done by then. It doesn't give me 3 minutes as an option in Kahoot. It's either 2 or 4. Only about 20 more seconds or so. Get your answers in there. All right, take about 5 more seconds, and then we're going to go talk about it.
It wasn't that difficult as long as you read it correctly.
All right, let's take a look at this one. Pretty good. Pretty good. Good. What would, and I like the excitement, Danielle. I love that. What would be charged in total loan fees? Total loan fees. So that statement right there, total loan fees for purchasing a $525,000 home at 80% loan to value with 2 discount points and a 1% origination. So total loan fee means those numbers added together, does it not?
Yeah.
Because remember, the discount points and the origination fees are both loan fees. So you could do them separately and add them together. Here's what I'm going to do in my head. I know 2 discount points is going to cost what?
2%.
2% of the loan, right? And I know that my origination is 1% of the loan. So the way I do it is I just know my total fees are going to be 3% of the loan. Is everybody okay with that statement?
Yes.
Now, if you wanted to do it, 1% origination fee is this, and the 2% for the discount points is this, and then add it together, same thing. It's going to work the same way, either way. Here's where you got to be careful on this question. Is it 3% of $525,000?
No.
No, that's a trap. That's a trap. Because they didn't borrow $525,000. They only borrowed what?
80%.
80% of that. So we need a loan amount here. $525,000 times 80%. That's a $420,000 loan. Q Seth telling me that was on purpose. It really wasn't, I promise. $420,000 loan. And now we are going to take 3% of that loan to come up with the fee. So times 3%. And remember, you can just type that in your calculator, times 3 divided by 100 for the percent part. Okay. So times 3%, $12,600 in total loan fees. Now, the other answers that I gave you as possibilities here either dealt with only doing the 2 discount points, which is a common mistake. And I'm guessing, Stephen, based on the way you reacted, that's probably what you did. Or using the 525 instead of the 420. So if you got it wrong, I am assuming you did one of those 2 mistakes, because those are the 2 common ones with a question like that. I'd be careful, and that just takes practice of recognizing we're doing loans. Purchase price doesn't matter. The loan matters. Only the loan. Okay. All right, one more. Calculate the interim interest, Janet will like this question, due on a new loan at 90% loan to value and 5% interest on a $276,000 purchase closing on February 20th. So just out of curiosity, if we say interim interest, who would be paying it? Whose loan is this?
Buyer.
This is a buyer's loan. This is not the seller's loan that they're paying off. This is the buyer's loan. This is a new loan. Try to do it in the next minute or so. I think everybody will be done by then. While people are finishing up, has this been helpful?
Yeah, super.
Definitely.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
Here's my goal in doing something like this. Yeah, I want you to fix the math, but this also helps you fix the ideas a lot too. I find that you need to get the ideas of what really is accrued interest and what really is interim interest and what is the loan payoff. You need the ideas fixed as much as you need the actual numbers fixed.
I think the timed part for me, it rushes me, which then shows my mistake, right? Like, so it's good to remember to like read and take your time.
Yeah, you got plenty of time. I mean, the timing is just not an issue for people. 4 hours is a long time to take a test. And so you're not going to have a timing issue. People stress about that so much, and it just doesn't. I mean, it's like worrying about the boogeyman and coming and getting you out of your bed at night. You're not going to run out of time. I mean, I get it as a concern, but we have seen it. Yeah, Natalie, but do you get nervous about the boogeyman though? Or do you just kind of like at some point realize that ain't happening? I wake up every day and I'm fine. And that's the deal with the timing. Seth will be the first to tell you that
Yes.
we get
Nobody
a
has a
question
problem with that.
all the time and it's just never an issue. Right. Now that getting nervous here because you want to win, I get that part. Right. Joseph says he's friends with the boogeyman. So a couple of people saying they can't with this one. I did something wrong. Well, first of all, define interim interest for yourself. Before you start tackling the numbers, don't you need to say what interim interest is? Don't you need to think your way through what interim interest is to answer this question? Right? So what is interim interest?
Interest from closing till the end of the month.
Closing till the end of the month. It's interest from closing until the end of the month. So it's interest from February 20th through what day?
February 30th.
The 30th.
February the 30th. That magical February 30th that happens so often, right?
That's why you did February. That's smart.
Okay. That's why I did February. Just to see if you would be tempted to try to do something different. There's 30 days in all of them. Here's my question. And by the way, in this case, I was not evil enough for it to matter with your answer. But is this 10 days or is this 11 days, folks? What do y'all think? 11 days. And Seth actually came up with, to me, of all the years I've ever taught this, the best way for somebody to remember that with interim interest, you have to do the +1. He literally told somebody one time, and I'd never thought of it that day. He's like, okay, well, clearly you see it's 30 minus 20. Everybody comes up with the 10 days, right? And he said, right, interim right beside it. He said that I in interim, there's your +1 right there. You don't do it on accrued interest. There's no I at it. It's that I, that's a +1 for interim interest. Anytime you do interim interest, what do you have to do? Add one what?
One day.
Add a day. Add a day. 10 plus the interim. That's 1 day. So how many days do we have total?
11.
11 days. How many of you think that helps you remember it? Right?
Yeah.
I think a little trick like that can be really helpful. So 11 days of interest. Now, is it 11 days of interest on $276,000?
No, it's on 248,400.
That's right, because we didn't borrow 276, we borrowed 90% of. So some of you that said you know what to do with it, maybe that's where you went off, right? So 276.
So 248,400.
Thank you. Times 90%, 248,400 for our loan amount. And that's what we're going to pay interest on at 5%. But of course, that's the annual interest rate. So when we get that 12,420, we need to break that down. Remember, we only break it down by either 30 or 12. Are we going to monthly here, or are we going to daily?
Daily.
Daily. And we know we're going to daily because we need 11 what?
Days.
Days, right? So we're going to break that down to daily, divide by 360, because that's what you do when you're getting to daily.
$34.50.
Thank you. $34.50 daily. And we already decided it's how many days?
11 days.
11.
So times 11 days. And that should give you somewhere around the $379.50. Okay. Erica said, I got stuck on 10. That's how I missed it. Let me ask you a question though, Erica. And it's an honest question. Okay. 379.50 minus 34.50 means you came up with 345. Wasn't the gold one still the closest answer?
Yes. But
So,
it was
so why didn't you pick that one?
close enough. I just thought I did something wrong because it wasn't close enough.
And you did do something wrong. You didn't count the one day. But what I'm saying to you is, and because it's a learning moment, even if you mess something like that up, if you still choose the one that's closest to the answer you came up with, you're probably going to be what?
Right.
You're probably going to be all right. Okay? And that is true in most of these questions. Now, Myra said, I chose gold, but I didn't know it was honest, correct answer. And that's what we want to fix. Absolutely. I mean, there's the test taking strategy, and then there's the just knowing it strategy. So why is it 11 days? If you want to know the reason it's 11 days is because the lender wants interest for the very first day, the day of closing. They don't just want interest for the days after closing, those 10 days after closing. They want interest for those 10 days plus the day of closing because they're lending you the money on the day of closing. That's why it's 11. That's why. Every single day. That's right. How we feel about this one now? Better? Pretty good? Pretty good on this one. I would say the 18 of you that chose 690, and I'd have to go back and look and see where 690 came from. What was 690? Is that if you did the 20 days? Is that what it was?
Yeah.
34.50 times 20 days? Yeah. You didn't calculate interim interest if you came up with 690. What did you calculate? Accrued interest. You calculated the opposite side. Buyers don't pay accrued interest. Buyers pay what?
Interim.
Interim interest. Sellers pay
Accrued.
accrued interest. Janet, you had your hand up.
Are there like certain test taking strategies of, you know how they put in fluff, like where it's like super obvious, or no, not really?
You mean on math questions?
Yeah, like things that you
No.
need.
I'll tell you, it's no, on math, to know what's fluff, you have to know what you need. There's really no magic answer to sorting out, what you don't need. What I will say is this: purchase prices are always fluff on finance questions. Anything that deals with a loan, purchase price is fluff. You don't need a purchase price. You might need it to get to the number you need, but what's the number you need on a loan question? You need the loan amount. So purchase price is always fluff on a loan question, but that's about really the only thing I could give you as a general rule of thumb, right? Natalie said buyers always responsible for interest for the day of closing. On their loan, yes. Natalie, here's what you scare me with when you ask that. You're trying to split the month up between the buyer and the seller. Stop doing that, Natalie. Don't do that. Don't do that. This is not a proration. We are not splitting that month up. Why does the buyer owe for the day of closing? Simply put, and say it without dealing with the seller, because it has nothing to do with the seller. Why does the buyer owe for the day of closing?
They have their own loan.
Because they're taking out a loan on the day of closing. And so they owe. Love that answer. Why does the seller also owe for the day of closing on theirs?
Because they're not closing until that day.
Because they're not closing until that day. They also have a loan on the day of closing. They each have their own loans, two separate loans that have nothing to do with each other. So the reality is, how many of those parties are paying interest on a loan on the day of closing?
Both of them.
Both of them. But they are not paying interest on the what?
The same loan.
The
Same loan.
Same loan.
Two separate loans going in two different directions. One's being paid off, so we got to pay interest up through that day. The other one is just coming into existence, so we got to pay interest starting on that day. They overlap.
Yes, both of those lenders want their money.
That's right. Think of it this way. The seller owes money to Bank of America. Bank of America wants their money through the 10th, or 20th in this one, I'm sorry. They want their money through the 20th. The buyer is getting a loan from BB&T. BB&T wants their money starting on the 20th. They overlap that day. Overlap that day. Okay? Yep, no freebies. Good. All right, let's see who I went. We can stop the recording here.